All right, welcome in, everybody. It is the Friday edition, section 1904. We'll get to the mea culpa here in a moment. As we set you up for the weekend, there is a distinct tone. There is a theme for our sports. It is San Diego versus Colorado. Full stop. Got the Colorado Rockies in town taking on the Padres. 640, 540, 110. Trying to trick them up with three different start times at Petco Park. And, of course, Saturday night, SDFC will travel to Commerce City, Colorado, 5,100 plus feet of elevation to take on the Colorado Rapids. It's interesting to me as I've been researching the Colorado Rapids all week long that there are certain teams from Denver that are proud to say they're from Denver, like the Broncos, like the Nuggets. And then there are other teams that just want to be affiliated with the state of Colorado, like the Rapids and the Rockies. And I guess, well, universities are different, CU, Colorado State. So I don't know what to make of that. The Colorado Avalanche, I don't know how they name these things. Some teams are state-specific. Some teams are city-specific. But there you go. That's the way we're starting Section 1904 today.
And some teams start as state-specific and move on to city-specific, like the California Angels, Anaheim Angels, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, and now Los Angeles Angels. I was actually going to ask you this because I know you've traveled to Denver a few times. You have some friends there. And I've been to Denver, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. And I've also spent a lot of time in Texas, Dallas and Austin. I think you have too. The thing that always grabs me when I'm in either one of those spots is how much pride they have in their state, right? Like if you're anywhere in Colorado, you're going to see the Colorado flag. If you're anywhere in Texas, you're going to see the Texas flag. There's so much pride about it. People wear shirts with it. People wear hats with it. It's on the bumper stickers of their cars. The state flags are everywhere. And every time I come back here, and maybe it's just because California is so big and spread out and Northern California is a long drive away from Southern California, it just doesn't feel like we have as much state pride as those places. But I love Denver. I think Denver's a great little city. The light rail to get around, the downtown area is very walkable. You go an hour in either direction. You got like Fort Collins or Boulder, which are also cool little cities. Colorado's not a terrible place to be.
Yeah, I'm with you 1,000%. As a matter of fact, on Thursday, I was out at the SDFC training center. And I was asking some of the PR people if they've ever been to Denver before. And when they said they had or had not, I was like, well, let me tell you about the Denver Biscuit Company, because I'm more than proud to pass that recommendation along to anybody in person or anybody even here on the podcast. So, the whole lower downtown Lodo is what they call it. Lodo, lower downtown Denver. That's where Coors Field is. And, the ballpark is the centerpiece of downtown in Denver. It takes a couple of minutes to get out there to wherever it is that the Broncos play in Vesco Field, I think, or whatever. And then it takes a hop and a skip to get out there to the Pepsi Center, I think it is, where the Avs and the Nuggets play.
Never been.
But then it's a little bit longer to get out there to where the Rapids play. They play about 10 miles outside of lower downtown Lodo in a city called Commerce City, which we talked about earlier this week. So I'm with you. I like it there. And I think it's a good road trip. I think it's a really good road trip for San Diego fans, whether you're a Padre fan. I know throughout the years, I remember doing broadcasts there when the Chargers would play. I know I did radio shows from Denver, from the stadium itself.
Yeah.
I know I could tell you there's I think 150 SDFC fans that are currently, John, as you and I are recording at 9:45 on Friday morning. I just saw them posting pictures from the airport. So this was the first real away day airplane. LA Galaxy, obviously 800 to 1,000 SDFC fans for the inaugural match in Carson. But now heading to Denver, we've had a handful of fans that have gone to Salt Lake and a handful of fans that went to Austin. But this will be, I think, the allotment, according to MLS. You have to allot for at least 100 away fans. And I think we passed the allotment and then some. So there's about 150 of the supporters that are taking flights, that booked this, that circled this one on the calendar almost the day that the schedule came out, that are on their way to Denver currently as you and I are chatting. So I think they will be well represented. That's a 6:30 match. And I do. I think even, if you're not into the soccer stuff, if you're into baseball, you want to check this. I think it's great. It's a direct. You get in there. It's a little bumpy. You come over the Rocky Mountains like you're a knuckleball flying over those mountains. It'll give you a little bit of a test. The weather's always a something you got to pay attention to. I think the old saying in Denver is if you don't like the weather, just wait 20 minutes. It'll
Yeah.
probably change. Hopefully not too dramatically this weekend for SDFC, but I'm with you. I like it there. I mean, I kind of dig Denver, and I'm with you about the whole state stuff too. And I understand why you would call yourselves the Colorado Rockies or the Colorado Avalanche or the Colorado Rapids. That they have but one sports team in the entire state for each of these sports, whereas in baseball you've got the Padres. You can't really get away with calling yourself. Golden State still gets away with it, I guess. Golden State still gets away with that, saying that they're the Golden State Warriors, whereas once upon a time they were the San Francisco Warriors. But
Yeah.
that's that's probably neither here nor there.
Number
Anyway,
number one, I love the Colorado flag. I think the colors, the blue, yellow, and red, are awesome. I wish more of their teams would adopt those colors as opposed to going off and kind of doing their own thing. But we've skipped over something important, Darren. Speaking of traveling, or in our case, not. And this is what reminded me. Denver is a great drinking city. It's a great city to just bar hop and brewery hop. It's and the people there like to drink and they're fun about it. Um, I saw a post yesterday from the Bada 18 account on Instagram that was basically talking about their plans to do some heavy drinking once they got to Denver or Colorado or Commerce City or wherever they're planning on going. And I remembered that, and then I remembered Bada 18. Their home base for, at least for away games, a place that will probably be very crowded and very loud on Saturday, is Mason Ale Works in Barrio Logan, where we told everyone we were going to be, and we are not there. Would you like to explain briefly?
yeah, this is on me. Yesterday, John had to issue the mea culpa for misunderstanding something that John Conniff said. A couple of shows back, John Conniff from madfriars.com. Join us if you missed that. Go to section1904.com. But today, this is on me because I think on Thursday we said we were going to be at Mason Ale Works in Barrio Logan on Logan Avenue. And I will say, just because she happens to be in close proximity, it was not in my calendar. It was not in my iCalendar that today we had scheduled an appointment to have our taxes done. It was not in my calendar. And if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. So we have to have our taxes done, I think, at about 11 or 12. I don't know. Our accountant is never on time. I mean, it's just for 15 years we show up there at whatever time he says he has an appointment. And it's like at least 45 minutes before we actually get into the room. And he's a bit of a chatty Cathy, so he likes talking. And it just, who knows what we're really in store for. So I might still stop by. I might still stop by depending on what time we get out of there, because we'll probably be looking for a little bit of lunch. And I would love to go stop and have some tacos, have a couple of beers, a couple of cervezas, depending on what the tax situation looks like. But obviously, it's April 11th. Tax day is Tuesday. So this isn't something. I canceled a dentist appointment this week because of everything that we got going on with Section 1904. And I'm doing the broadcast this week. So I just had a bunch of things happening. So my wife is literally texting me from the other room. And she's admitting that she was wrong, that it was not in my calendar, because she grumbled under her breath that it was in my calendar, blaming me instantly.
We need to get a second mic for you, just so she can chime in.
Right. Yeah, she's got her own situation going on. But it was not in there, so that's my bad. My apologies. And it's just not something I can cancel. I can push a dentist appointment back. I'm fine. I don't have any issues. But I cannot move a tax appointment back. I was up till 11 o'clock last night going through receipts. Can I just say one thing? Because we are attempting to launch something, and I will use this opportunity, John. And have I made it clear that listen, I know a couple of people said, hey, what time are you going to go to Mason? What time are you going to go to Mason? I can't commit to that. I just can't. I know we said it would be a great way to start a Friday and everybody should go anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what time we're actually going to get into the room with the accountant. Like I said, he's a talker, man. So, we could be there till like 5 o'clock. But as we are launching what we hope to be a successful subscription model type podcast here. And I do want to take this opportunity to say, just as I scroll through email, thank you to Corey Woodley, Charlie, for signing up. Matt, I appreciate it. Matt sent us a nice email. Did you read Matt's email?
I did read Matt's email. That warmed my heart.
Do you want me to read it?
Go for it.
I don't have to. I can just scroll through.
No, read it. I thought it was fun.
He said, "Hey, I'm glad that you guys are doing this. Great ambassador for sports in the small town. John G, great foil. Seems to be a true professional. Gennaro is not really my style, but hey, nobody wants to hear two Darren Smiths talking to each other. JG is a great foil and a true professional. I've listened enough to see and hear that it's going to work. I wish you both the best of luck. So thank you to Matt. Really appreciate that. Eric Sanchez, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I'm literally just scrolling through email here. John Conniff subscribed. That's great. Justin, I appreciate you. Eric, thank you very much. I realize I'm running the risk of missing a lot of people here. Matt Higginson, thank you. Very nice note. I appreciate that as well. Dave, Jeff.
Hey, wait. Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, please.
There's 3 people who I don't know whether or not you've read their names out or not, but since we have launched and allowed people to subscribe, these 3 people in particular deserve special recognition, and then we can get onto the actual podcast. And that is Matt Allen, Stephen Perry, and Grant Fetcher. Sorry if you don't want your names out there, but those 3 guys basically maxed out. They went, I want the top tier, and I will pay for a year up front. So they have agreed to give us the maximum amount of money that we will take, and that's going to help us get off to a very good running start. Once everyone gets charged and we start adding more onto this ship, more on that coming in the next few days, weeks, whatever. But those 3 guys basically said, I want to support this as much as humanly possible. And
Wow.
I want to tell those three guys in particular that I love you. Thank you.
Yeah, we all love you. Rich Roberts, I think I may have mentioned Rich yesterday.
boy.
Daniel Corona, thank you very much. Again, and I apologize. Once you start going down all the list, you're like, oh, so he's like, oh, well, what about? And I mean, there's so many of them that it could probably be all 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But that was a way of me talking about subscriptions. And as I was gathering all the information for my taxes, John, and I don't know, have you guys done your taxes yet?
I was actually going to say, yeah, my experience with my CPA is almost the exact opposite of yours these days. I dropped off my documents a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, and I sent him an email saying, "Hey, let us know if we need to come in, do a meeting, whatever." Didn't hear from him. At one point, I sent an email like, I have another document I need to send your way. What's the best way to do that? Didn't hear from him. Like a month goes by. We hear nothing. And finally, we send him an email 2 days ago, like Wednesday, going like, hey, we just need to know whether or not you're doing our taxes. Because if not, we got to find someone else to do it. And the next day, our taxes show up completely done. He's like, all you got to do is DocuSign this thing and we're ready to go. And this happens every year. We don't hear from him at all. And then when we get to the point, we're going, hey, are you going to do this? It's done the next day. And we're like, oh, and he's great. And I don't mind not going in and talking to him, even though he's a lovely person, because he is a huge Dodgers fan. And he rubs my nose in how good the Dodgers are, how talented they are every year. This year, not a word. Couple words through email. Strictly professional, nothing about baseball. But I can't recommend it highly enough.
Oh, well, this is the year where you can actually strut into that office and be like, best record in baseball,
Maybe that's
bitch.
why he wasn't replying.
A lot of that going on social media. We got the best record in baseball, bitches. So, we have to submit a bunch of stuff. And over the years, our accountant's, he's a clever guy. And, he said, hey, you work in sports media. So, let's talk about some of your business expenses.
Yeah.
Right? Like 2025 taxes are going to be, I don't even.
Oh, no. Yeah. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mess.
With you and I talking about LLCs, even with SDFC and 1099s. So, for the most part, it's like W-2s, 1099s, things like that. But, he also asked me like, well, what do you need? Like, what do you need for work? And I started going through all my subscriptions last night. Since we're talking about subscriptions, I don't want people to think I don't walk the walk.
Hey, Apple TV,
just because we're talking the talk.
Apple TV's a business expense, baby, because we needed to watch the MLS games.
Yeah, that's an added expense for next year.
Yeah.
I will say the MLS season pass is $79.99, but that didn't make the cut for 2024. So let me tell you what it is that I pay in subscriptions.
Oh no!
Again, not just as a point of reference,
Sure.
because I'm sure I'm not alone in this. ESPN Plus, I spent $99 a year for ESPN.
I got
Plus.
out.
Why
on
would
that.
you? You do what?
I got out of ESPN Plus. I wasn't
I
using it.
can't. I mean, it's the home of La Liga, the Spanish
Yeah,
soccer
you're
league. I'm a
screwed.
Barcelona fan, so
Yeah,
I
you're
do like
screwed.
watching all the Spanish soccer broadcasts. So I'm in on that one. I think they just raised their rates for 2025 to
Oof.
109. Plus, there's good catalogs there. I like the ESPN 30 for 30s. Every once in a while, when nothing's happening, I don't mind going and watching like the two Escobars on the ESPN 30 for 30 catalog. So I'm good on that.
I imagine you skipped the Miller time one about Reggie Miller ripping out the heart of the New York Knicks.
Totally.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. So yeah. Padres, I spent $99 last year on the Padres.
Okay.
Okay. Like I don't even know that I don't even remember renewing that. I'm sure it's on an auto renewal type thing.
Sure.
But Padres, they got me for $100. Talked a little bit about their subscriptions yesterday. I'm one of those people that is very impressive to Rob Manfred. Rob Manfred is very impressed that I have committed to.
I want to clip that. I'm one of the people that's very impressive to Rob Manfred.
Right, yeah. When Rob is like, well, it tells me there's a lot of people in San Diego that want to watch the Padres. You're right, Rob. I'm one of them. I watch Champions League soccer, the European League. So Paramount Sports. That's something that I pay for. I think that is $7.99 a month. I had this all last night because I needed to look it all up.
Yep.
It's going through credit card receipts till friggin' 11 o'clock at night. It's amazing. I spend money on Peacock. Hey, every once in a while there's a Premier League game I got to watch. I got to see what's going on with Tottenham Hotspur.
No, you don't.
John.
No, you don't. I gave up mine a few months ago. I'm pretty happy about that decision right now.
I don't know. Ange doesn't seem like it's going real well for him right now. Guy looked like he was just battered walking off the field yesterday in the Europa League. But they got me for like $7-8 a month or whatever it is. Apple is I think Apple's up to about 10 now.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then on top of it for 2025, as mentioned, I paid for MLS. You would think if you are working with an MLS club that would be part of your work agreement. But anyway, I subscribe to a couple of podcasts on Patreon, and that combined was about $15, I think, a month, because I too, like Matt and others, have paid for tiers that give me access to WhatsApp channels and all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm in for about $15 for two different podcasts. The Spanish football podcast and my favorite podcast is called the Second Captain's Podcast, which is an Ireland-based one. Very controversial, and I'll admit it on the podcast. I pay $23 a month for the New York Times, John, for the failing New York Times. That's $23 a month for me. Right there.
I actually the other day, because we got in on some sort of promotional offer. My wife got in on a New York Times subscription for some sort of promotional offer, and she said the other day, she's like, the promotional price is going back up to the normal price, and we should probably cancel it. And I was like, no, business expense. And she was like, what? I was like, Darren's always sending me athletic articles, and I need to be able to read them for the show. It's like, so that's now a business expense. We can keep that one.
And that is a perfect observation for you to mention The Athletic.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing that I have now just this morning discovered as a result of this being tax day for
both?
me. I have been paying for both.
Oh.
Now, for those that might not understand this, a couple of years ago, the New York Times bought The Athletic.
They did.
And if you were a full subscriber to the New York Times, included in your subscription was access to The Athletic.
And Wordle.
So when I was going through all my receipts, I saw one for The Athletic and I saw one for the New York Times. And I said, wait a second here. So I went to The Athletic website today, John. What do you think The Athletic? And I'm not saying that this is not worth the price, because I think it is worth the price.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of The Athletic.
Are you gonna ask me,
I want to support.
You can ask me what the cost is for just.
What do you think the annual cost is for The Athletic?
I remember when I originally signed up, it was like $1 a month for 12 months, and then I think it went up to $8 after that. The New York Times is bougie; they're not afraid to ask for money. You said the New York Times subscription was like $20 a month.
I'm paying $23 a month.
Okay, so just The Athletic, I'm going to say, is like $12.99.
Well, I couldn't break it down. I'm not going to do the math on this, but I pay on an annual basis, and I've been a subscriber for as long as The Athletic has been around. And I went to my account. I'm on the page right now, and it says I was paying $71.99 a year for The Athletic. $71.99. So I was like, well, this is obviously this doesn't make any sense to keep doing this.
So it's $6 a month.
Oh, it's not bad.
That's not terrible.
And maybe I'm grandfathered in because I was an early subscriber. I'm
Also, you're
not sure.
paying annually, you get a discount on that probably.
Yeah, right. So again, and I have no complaints about this sort of stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, this isn't, but this is just and I'm not trying to cost the Athletic any money here. I'm just going to get to this and then I'll move on. When as I'm looking to cancel it, it then gave me a screen. It says, "Oh, we're going to give you an exclusive
Yep.
loyalty offer.
Yep.
You can keep your subscription to the Athletic for another year for just $24." So
Uh-huh.
they reduced the price from $71.99 to $24. And I will tell you, I actually thought about keeping it, but then I was like, wait a minute. It's not a charity; it's a business.
Yeah.
So and I think they're doing okay. So I'm going to cancel the Athletic anyway. But it just might be worth something if you've been a subscriber to the Athletic for a couple of years and you don't want to deal with the failing New York Times, then you can just see maybe there's a better offer out there. Maybe there's a better deal out there. If you're paying like I was paying $71.99 for the year and you go to the cancel option, it might give you a deal. It
Yeah.
might offer you a deal. So, that's all I'm saying
There
there.
are so many instances of this because they'll do promotional rates to get you to jump into a subscription and hope you forget, right? When you think about it, and then you're like, I should cancel this, they'll offer you another promotional rate for 6 to 12 months or whatever to try and get you to go back to forgetting about the subscription. I had a friend. We haven't talked in years. It wasn't a falling out. I moved away, did different lives. She was in law school, and she realized that if someone she knew had a subscription, she could call, basically act as though she was a lawyer and say, you need to, I need to cancel this plan, blah, blah, blah. And they would always offer a reduced rate for like 12 months. She had a whole business where people once a year, she would call up like DirecTV and be like, either my rate's got to go down or you got to throw in Sunday Ticket for free. And every time the company would be like, yeah, sure. We don't want to lose the business. We want to go back to the sure. Here, have the promotional thing. And she saved me and some of my friends and some friends of friends a lot of money that way. And all it was just you threaten to cancel, you wait for them to offer you some sort of promotional discount, you take it, and then a year later you do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this was an episode of Friends a million years ago where people always tried to cancel their gym membership
Yeah,
and they end up getting some sort of special perk and like, I can't cancel the gym membership
correct.
now. I also noticed today somebody sent me a link to a story at the Union Tribune. I guess Tom Krasovich wrote something about Eric Hosmer. I don't know.
About Eric
So,
Hosmer's podcast, actually.
and I clicked on the link and I couldn't access the story. And I will tell you, as a former iHeart employee, I guess they've I guess they've changed some of their usernames and passwords that they used to have in there. So I was riding high on the old iHeart usernames and passwords. I probably shouldn't admit that, but whatever. And I did notice that they are offering a year subscription to the Union Tribune for $1 a year.
Yeah.
You can subscribe for $1 a year, and then I clicked, and the details said, and afterwards $4.99 per week or something. So I don't know exactly like
That's
how
how they
that
get
kicks
you.
in
That's how they
or
get
what
you.
you have to agree to or any of that sort of stuff. And I will admit, I was like, well, maybe I should. Maybe I should support a local
So
newspaper.
I will tell you, tip, because when this happens to me where I'm like, that's a great deal, but it's meant to get you in and make you forget about it, and then you don't remember it until you've paid $5 a week for like 2 years, right?
Sure, sure. Like who knows how long? I mean, the
So
Athletic got purchased by the New
right.
York Times years
But my
ago.
my phone is always right by me. So when I see something like that, that's like, oh, that's a great deal for 12 months, and then after that, it's a terrible deal. I will literally pick up my phone. I will ask Siri, who might wake up now, um, and I'll be like, hey, remind me in like 11 months and 3 weeks to cancel this. And all of a sudden, 11 months and 3 weeks later, I get a thing. It's like, oh, cancel your Union Tribune membership. And I'm like, what? And a lot of times I go to cancel and they're like, hey, do you want $1 for the next year? I'm like, yeah, I do. And then I just set another one. So reminders are your friend.
Yeah, I normally I have done that as well. I have said, when I have something, whether it's this kind of thing like a subscription thing or even I have a bit of money in a in a CD,
Yeah.
like in a decent yield CD, and that's coming due. So I always have that. Anyhow, all right.
Sports?
So I don't know how many things you subscribe to in life, and maybe I'm doing this all wrong. Maybe people think it's crazy to subscribe to this much stuff, but I just like being able to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. Right? I mean, makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense to me.
that's I mean, we are at a point now because obviously we haven't made any money here yet, and I'm still on unemployment. I got laid off back in December, so we're now getting to the point where we're like, okay, which one of these streaming services do we use the least, right? So we recently canceled our Netflix because we were like, we're not watching it, our daughter's watching it, but she's got plenty of stuff she can watch on Disney Plus or Paramount Plus, so we can live without that one. We looked at Peacock and it was like the only thing we watch on Peacock is Tottenham games, which I hated watching. So we can turn that one off for a little while. So we're dancing around and trying to get more efficient with it. So we're definitely paying attention. But yeah, this is years ago. My buddy Dallas McLaughlin had this joke. I don't remember if it was recorded or if I saw him do it live, where he said that there was this amazing company that invented this little black box, and it combines all the streaming services into one. And all you do is you pay $100 a month, and all the streaming things you want get fed into this little black box. And the name of it is cable. And and it's true. Like we've just taken everything that we used to watch in one place and spread it out over a bunch of places. And I don't think we're saving any money unless you decide you can live without certain things, in which case you're just kind of breaking even anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Netflix. I'll have to add that to the rundown a little later.
Yeah.
Forgot about that one. I also pay for some channel called VIX. It's a Spanish language channel that shows a ton of soccer. So wanted to watch a World Cup qualifier one day. I was like, oh, Argentina's playing. Whatever, $5. So
This is where the
anyhow.
reminders would help you.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say about Dallas's theory on that is when you do pay for cable, though, you're paying for like quite literally thousands of things that you don't watch.
Totally.
And at least for the most part, I don't know what else is on these Peacock channels and all that sort of stuff, but at least I know where to find what it is that I'm looking for. I don't know. There's no real perfect system
Yeah.
to any of this, so I guess you just figure it out. You do the best you can. All right. So yesterday I went out to SDFC training. I went out to Singing Hills to Quan. As the squad's getting set, they're going to go to Colorado.
How hot was it?
Mentioned. Actually, it was right on the. I was like right on the border. I wore jeans.
Ooh.
And I was like right on the border of like, am I too hot? Am I not? Like how do I? Is this the last day that I could probably get away with wearing jeans out here? It was just like warm enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I didn't have any. I probably will not wear jeans. I don't know. I don't want to get off on a weird tangent about jeans.
Okay.
But it was warm. It was warmish. It wasn't as warm as it was the other day.
Oh,
But
okay.
I was okay. I didn't feel like I needed to come home and take a shower. But it looks like everybody's sort of healthy. Ima Boateng was training.
Marcus?
And Andres Reyes? No, not Marcus. Not Marcus. It's going to be a while.
Yeah,
He's going to be a little
You said
while.
everyone, so I got excited.
Yeah. Let's see. I saw Milan Iloski, who just is an Escondido kid who came back. He was out there training, recorded an interview with him, which will be on the pregame show on Saturday at 6:00 on SDFC Kickoff Live. Can I tell you something interesting? So
Yeah.
they made I think it's going to be an interesting, Colorado's got some players. Like they've got some class. They've got class in goal. Zach Steffen, who was the presumed number one for the U.S. men's national team for years, who went off, who was playing for Manchester City and Pep Guardiola before coming back to MLS. He's in goal. He's already had a game this year where he's had 10 saves in a game.
Whoa.
He has more saves. This is me just dumping all the information that I probably won't get to during the broadcast. He has more saves this year than 26 teams. And you think, well, wait a second. Is that really an interesting stat? Well, he also has missed a game. So he's played one fewer game than a lot of other starting goalkeepers in MLS. He missed a game against Portland, a game that they lost 3-0. So Zach Steffen has had a game where he's had 10 saves. He's been a man of the match a couple times. Very good in goal. I think his back line's a little dodgy, but they have some interesting players in their midfield. And yes, I am literally sitting here amongst a million notes for Colorado Rapids. But they've got some interesting midfielders. They've got some interesting pieces. I think it's going to be interesting. Good players, like I said. They got off pretty good. A couple of draws, a couple of wins, and they've dropped 2 of their last 3. Have had a couple of games where they haven't had a shot on target, which is something, I suppose. But at the end of practice yesterday, This is Mikey Varas in a nutshell. Mikey is pretty well known to be a yogi. He's a
Does
he's a
yoga.
yoga guy. That's I relate to that as somebody who considers himself a yogi as well. Always talked about it on the radio, and like to live a lifestyle, where it's about being present, all that sort of thing. At the end of practice yesterday, at the end of their training, the entire squad. Have you ever done yoga?
I tried it.
Okay. Do you know what savasana is?
No.
Okay, so at the end of the practice, it's also referred to as corpse pose, but it's called shavasana. And you just literally at the end of a yoga practice, you lie down, eyes closed, lie on your back for a minute, 2 minutes. Most instructors will recommend if you can do it for 4 or 5 minutes, 10 minutes, do it for 10 minutes. Just sit there, be present, be alone with your thoughts, don't make any noise, keep your eyes closed, lights down, all that sort of stuff. He had the entire team on the field. The entire team laying down after a training session, which was not as grueling as it was earlier in the week, obviously, the closer you get to match day. And had the entire squad lying down on the field in Savasana, which I thought was interesting with their towels. Just the bit of mindfulness. And he explained it. He's like, listen, this isn't just about soccer. This is about life. This is about clearing your mind of thoughts and just being able to focus on what it is that you want to do in life. So, like in a nutshell, some people will say, well, that's kind of goofy and stupid and weird. But, that's what Mikey is. And he's an authentic dude. And he's very much into the mental side of the game, and he's very much into the mental skills of the game and how it is that you prepare. And it was just an interesting thing for us to watch. It was the open part of practice too. We're not allowed to sit there and watch all of practice, but we were allowed to watch the last 15, 20 minutes of training or what have you, mostly so the TV guys can sit there and shoot some video so they could run it.
Yeah.
And just to watch all of these guys, watch 25, 30 professional athletes lying down on the field in the sun, on the grass, with the towels over their face. I thought it was very interesting, just in terms of how he wants them to be present and appreciate the mindfulness of being a professional athlete and trying to clear their thoughts so that they can focus on the task at hand. I thought that was really kind of a cool thing.
Okay, so when I'm being my most optimistic parenting self, I think that my daughter's generation, or maybe a generation between me and my daughter, if there is one, is going to be the generation that says we don't need to be on social media, we don't need to be on our phones. Technology is ruining our brains. We need to be more present, focused, and all of that, right? And you and I have talked for years about trying to find time in our day to basically separate from technology and just tap into your brain and be present and all of that. I read a story this morning, and I'll promote it. It's on I think it's called The Bandwagon, which is the Substack being run by Hannah Kaiser and Zach Kreiser. I used to produce their podcast, which was also called The Bandwagon at Yahoo Sports before they both got laid off, and then I got laid off. But it's great that they're both writing again, and they're writing these columns where it's like one of them writes one thing and then the other writes one below it. So Hannah wrote this thing about kind of what we were texting about yesterday about Pat McAfee and ESPN kind of like turning into bullies instead of analysts, and how that's been really negative for sports media. And then below, so I read all that and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then Zach wrote about the Angels, who are 8-4. The Los Angeles Angels, who everyone assumed would be terrible, maybe they still will, are 8-4 under manager Ron Washington, former Padres third base coach. Ron Washington, bench coach. He was here, right?
Was he?
Wasn't he here?
I don't think so.
I feel like he was here before he went to Atlanta. I'm probably mixing him up with someone else.
He was with Texas. Well, he was linked with Preller. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
He
He
was
was linked with AJ Preller through the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, was he never? I'm going to look this up at some point. I swear he was up.
He's not been on the coaching staff since I've been here since 2003. Okay. Since I've been covering the team.
I'm mixing him up with something, but it doesn't matter. He's the manager of the LA Angels now. Did you hear about his policy of no cell phones in the clubhouse?
Yes, I did. Well, I read it because I saw that you posted it on Blue Sky.
That is, and it's kind of the same thing you're talking about, Mikey Veras, is like focus on where you are, the people around you, and what you're doing, right? Be present. And that is the strongest way to build relationships. And like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard from reporters or played a reporter myself and walked into a locker room and every guy is on their phone. Every guy, they walk out of the shower, they sit down, they grab their phone and they're staring at their phone. And most guys aren't even talking to each other. They're definitely not having, deep conversations. And I think this is brilliant. I think it's brilliant by Ron Washington. I think it's brilliant by Mikey Varys. And I think it's a sign of things to come. The best way to build chemistry amongst people is real personal human connections, and phones and the internet and social media get in the way of that. So shout out to Mikey and shout out to Ron Washington.
Yeah, because what's the alternative? That the guys go running into the training facility and they go about getting on their phones or doing whatever. And it was a moment. And some of the players spoke afterwards, and of course, there were other reporters there that were asking the questions, and maybe somebody's written about this. I don't know, but I was like, well, what's the deal? Like, what's going on here? What's the purpose of the mindfulness? And you had a couple of players like Jesper Loffelson spoke, and Jesper was saying like, I've never done anything like this, but he's like, yeah, like it does help. Like it just does help with us to feel like we're doing something as a group, even
Yeah.
in complete silence. We're doing this thing where we're forming this kind of bond. And it's not just because it's expansion. And again, I understand that yoga is not for everybody and mindfulness. People have busy lives and not everybody has the opportunity to do this sort of stuff, but you should find time. You should try to find some time
Try.
where you can do this sort of stuff. My wife and I have been going on walks and she's going through some stuff at work. Like it's not great. And, I can't be taking walks where you're checking your phone. Like we just can't be doing that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So like we've got to find these spaces where, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody. It's not like I mean, I got a phone sitting right here in my lap.
Yeah.
It's like, but I do appreciate that you can try and if it's authentic, I think it's meaningful. Hopefully it comes across as authentic with the Angels. And an interesting tidbit was that Ron Washington isn't even doing this just to sound like a cranky old man, like, hey, you kids, get off your phones. But it is almost at the request of some of the players, right?
And
Like if I
he's not
read the
even.
story correctly, Mike Trout is
Yes.
one of the enforcers of the policy
Yes.
where Mike Trout will see you on your phone and say, hey, that's going to be
Yeah.
$500. You're going to be fined $500 because you're violating this policy. So not that he's a narc, but that Mike Trout is saying, like, we've got to do this sort of stuff. We feel like we are supportive of our manager. And this is the kind of thing that we want to do inside of our own clubhouse. So we'll see how it works. I don't know. But I do like that it's okay to focus on this kind of stuff in 2025. That the attention given to like mental skills, not necessarily, mental health, but mental skills,
Mhm.
trying to, you can only hit so many balls in the cage. You can only field so many. How do you deal with your mental skills? How do you perform in clutch situations? All that sort of stuff. How do you free your mind to be able to perform in a high stress situation and environment? I like that we're talking about that sort of stuff because I think it's a huge part of the game.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite things about sports still. Because even though, I said all those players are on their phones in the clubhouse or the locker room or whatever, during the game, like halftime, whatever. But during the game, that shit's not allowed, which means the players, even on the Padres, who don't have this policy, will spend 2 to 3 hours a day with each other in an environment with no phones. And that, I don't know if I said this to you or someone else like a couple months ago. That I think is why when players are retiring or they're not doing it anymore, they're like, the thing I miss the most is time with the guys. And I've always thought like part of that is because you have this real connection because you spend so much time with each other. You have to be so vulnerable with each other because you're living with each other and you spend a lot of your time together, or at least some of your time together, with no access to the internet and social media and your friends and your family and everyone else who could be in your phone, which forces these real connections. So, yeah, it's just you said the thing about Mikey Varas that reminded me about Ron Washington, who I looked it up. You're right, was never a Padres coach. Just came really close to being their manager twice because he's got the AJ Preller connection. But I gotta say, I like what he's doing with the Angels. I liked what he did with the Rangers.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, I think you listen to the players, and the players seem to love the guy. So yeah, there will be some recognizable games for anybody that's tuning in on Saturday night to SDFC. If you're a fan of the U.S. Men's National Team, maybe you remember the name Reggie Cannon. He's one of their defenders. Um, if you are a fan of San Diego Loyal, this was an interesting one for me as I was going through their roster and I watched a couple of their games. Somebody might remember Oliver Larraz. He was on loan with SD Loyal for a while. I think he played right back, scored a goal. So that was, I was like, oh, wait, I know that name. I know that name. Zach Steffen, as I mentioned, starting goalkeeper here, who, I think should be in the running for the U.S. men's national team starting goalkeeper. They've got
Really?
some, I do. Yeah, I'm over Matt Turner. I
Well,
was over Matt Turner before the Nations League.
and you said
So
and you said Stefan had a game this year where he already had
10
10.
saves against San Jose.
The SDFC played against some really good keeper a couple weeks ago. Was that Austin? The Austin?
Yeah, I mean they played against a really good keeper, and St. Louis's keeper is really good. Yeah, the keepers are good in this league. Brad Stuvers, who you're talking
That's
about
who
in
I'm talking
Austin, he
about.
was really good. The guy in St. Louis is a goalkeeper of the year in MLS, so that's again, and our guy CJ is really good too. These both these keep. It's interesting. I wish I had realized it yesterday because they made CJ Dos Santos the goalkeeper for San Diego FC
Yeah.
available to media. And I was like,
Ooh.
oh, okay. And I asked a question or two about altitude and about hey, like
Yeah.
people are considering you like an MLS Cup candidate.
Yeah.
Like how are you guys dealing with that sort of stuff? And CJ said, I don't really deal with social media. I don't know what's being said. But I wish I had thought about it. And I wonder in hindsight if they made CJ Dos Santos available yesterday because he was from Philadelphia, who spent a little bit of time in the Philadelphia Union youth system. You know who else is from Philadelphia who spent some time in the Philadelphia Union youth system is Zach Steffen. I was like,
Mm.
man, like I wonder if these guys must know one another. And it was a huge miss. When I got home yesterday, I was like, God, what a whiff that would have been to find out if there's a connection between these two goalkeepers that are going to be starting, these two goalkeepers from Philadelphia, both who spent time in the Union, both who then went to Europe, and both who now are back in Major League Soccer. I wonder, that sounds like it's going to be a storyline for Apple TV Plus.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's a storyline, even though nobody presented it as such. I was kicking myself for not realizing that sooner. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a good match. I do. I think it's gonna be a real good match. I think the health, winning a couple of matches straight, keeping it rolling.
Mhm.
I thought I asked a pretty smart question of Mikey Varis. I was pretty proud of myself. Do you know that Mikey Varis is the only coach, which means that SDFC is the only team in the league, John, you're allowed 5 substitutions per match. Okay. This is like a post-COVID world that we're living in now. It used to be 3, but you're allowed 5 substitutions in Major League Soccer per match. Mikey Varis is the only head coach through 7 weeks that has used every one of his substitutes, 5 substitutes a game for 7 games. He used 35 substitutes. Nobody else has done that. I don't know
Really?
why. Some coaches prefer, give you an example, the Columbus Crew head coach, Wilfred Nancy. He is he's a guy who likes he likes a small team. He likes a team, maybe 2 substitutions. He doesn't like having a big squad.
Right.
And he's known for that. Like when you look at their numbers, you're like, oh wow, these guys don't play a ton of minutes, do they? But that's the way he wants to do it for whatever reason. And he's a successful coach. He's got the top team in the Eastern Conference. He's won an MLS Cup, so he's doing something right. But he's known, his reputation is he doesn't like using a bunch of subs.
Well, and you've pointed out that STFC, and I've pointed out this too. STFC is a team that A, likes to play fast, likes to play aggressive, but B, and this is the thing that I pointed out, they like to get a really fast start in games, right?
Yeah, they
And
feel like the floodgates will open up if they can score early.
right, and my guess is part of this strategy is there was some NBA coach who was doing this for a while, and I don't remember who was like, we're just gonna play all out 100%, but it's like short shifts in hockey, right? Like no one's gonna play more than like 5 minutes at a time, and then we're gonna pull people off and stagger them and everything like that. So I wonder how much of this is Mikey going, I need you to play all out, but we're gonna have a big squad, so not everyone's gonna be exhausted by the end of it. We'll find places to, and the other guy going like, no, like no errors. We're going to play at our speed, whatever. Like it just seems like it's a difference in philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I hope people find this. I mean, if you find it halfway as interesting as I find it, then hopefully it's interesting. But it's just like how successful people can do things totally differently.
Yeah.
When SDFC played at Real Salt Lake, I listened to the Real Salt Lake. The head coach there is Pablo Mastroeni, who someday I think should be a candidate for the U.S. men's national team. But he's a former defender. He's got like 60 caps, 60 appearances for the U.S. men's national team. And after the game where SDFC went up there and won 3-1, he was asked something about having to sub off one of his defenders. He's like, I don't ever want to sub off a defender, ever. Like if I have to sub off a defender, something's gone wrong
Huh.
in the match. Either a player's gotten hurt or he's playing so poorly that I have no choice. But I don't ever want to do that. And it stood out to me, John, because Mikey had subbed off 3 of the 4 defenders in the same game. Now, one of them was because of injury. Patty McNair got
Yeah.
hurt in the game, so he had to come off.
But still.
But they had subbed out 3 of the 4. I'm like, wow, that's just interesting that guys do this completely differently, you know? So, I asked about that and I said, I understand who you put in is going to be, that's going to be something that's situational, right? Are you chasing the match? Are you trying to kill the match? What are you trying to do here?
Yeah.
But the overall philosophy, I think, feels tactical that you're using all 5 of these subs in each of these games. And he said, yeah, I'm trying to get everybody involved. He goes, he specifically said, we want to play with a big squad. I don't know that it's going to happen every single match, but I just think of note through match day 7 that they are the only team that has used 5 subs in each game thus far. And it looks like everybody, again, but for Marcus Ingvartson, I didn't see Luca Bambino either now that I think about it. But it appears like they'll have a mostly full squad. And at altitude, where the weather's going to be 80 degrees, it should be another one of those kind of situations there as well.
Wait, just quick question. Is this so he's got 5 subs, but only 5 subs, right? And he's the only one using all 5 subs every game. This feels like, and correct me if I'm just not knowledgeable enough about this. If he uses all 5 subs, takes 5 guys off, puts 5 new guys on, and someone gets hurt, he can't replace them, right?
No.
You got to play with 10.
Correct.
So my guess is this is one of those situations like when Schilt brings in, subs one catcher for another, Maldonado comes in for Diaz, and all of a sudden my brain's like, well, now if Maldonado gets hurt, you're screwed because who's your catcher? This feels like one of those situations where the coaches probably always keep one in the back pocket just in case of injury. And it might be that Mikey's a little bit more, willing to accept that risk, or maybe he just needs to learn a bad lesson and be like, oh, right. and learn from that and change his ways. But for right now, it's at least interesting. It's bold. It's aggressive.
Yeah. And again, he's not making 5 at halftime, right? Where you're running that sort of risk. When I think about it here, I don't have all the minutes in front of me, but some of the stuff is happening in the 89th, 90th minute, right? You're trying to kill off the match, you're trying to eat a little bit of clock. Yeah. So, again, it's something that you have at your disposal, and he's the only person in the sport to have done it. Now, here's the other thing. And as I'm preparing for this, I got to say, MLS, man, what are we doing? Statistics. I go to one website. I've been going to Baseball Reference forever.
Sure.
That's my preferred site.
Uh-huh.
Now, it doesn't mean that I think that the Baseball Reference war is necessarily that much more efficient than the Fangraphs war. I don't know.
But the site makes sense to you.
I understand how to find what I'm looking for on that site.
Yeah.
And so with Baseball Reference, there's a Basketball Reference and there's a soccer. It's called Football Reference. But I go to Football Reference for my data. When I'm prepping for a game or a pregame show, I go to footballreference.com. That's where I find my stuff. And as I was taking down my notes, it said that SDFC had 11 assists thus far through the first 7 games of 2025. 11. I was on the MLS website because I was going to the Colorado Rapids page to find their pronunciation guide. And I see right there on the front page that SDFC leads Major League Soccer with 16 assists.
Wait, where was this? This was on MLSsoccer.com?
MLS's official website.
Yeah.
Okay. So, wait a second. This doesn't sound right. So let me go back to footballreference.com. Let me go to the SDFC page. No, it says here 11. So let me refresh this page because I must have it wrong. I must just have had it from the previous week, right? What's that? No, it says 11. Let me go back to MLS. Leads MLS was 16. What's the deal? So I have learned this week, and it's taken me 7 weeks working with an MLS team, John, to learn that MLS, unlike almost every other league on planet Earth, uses what is often referred to as the hockey assist, which is a second assist for a goal. I'll give you an example. This past weekend against Seattle Sounders, the second goal of the game, it was a pass from the midfield. Chucky Lozano gets it out to the right side. Anders Dreyer has it. Anders Dreyer drives towards the 18-yard box. He cuts the pass back. Anibal Godoy scores. On the broadcast, we say Godoy, goal, assist, Anders Dreyer. After the match, apparently, the bookkeeping gives an assist also to Chucky Lozano. So Chucky Lozano has 1 goal and 3 assists according to MLS, but he has 1 goal and 2 assists according to every other statistical accounting service on planet Earth.
Wait.
So I don't know what I'm supposed to do on these broadcasts.
Wait, I'm gonna ruin this for you, and I'm very sorry, but I have to. So what most people don't realize is that all of these sites get fed the stats from somewhere, right? It's automated.
Right.
Football Reference doesn't have a guy there writing down the stats, and neither does ESPN, and neither does, well, I guess MLS has a stat keeper, right? Let's talk about Lionel Messi for a second. Because Lionel Messi on MLSsoccer.com. I don't know what they think the essence in MLS stands for, but MLSsoccer.com. Last year, Lionel Messi, 20 goals, 10 assists, right? Those are round numbers. We can remember that. 20 goals, 10 assists, right? What do you think it says on Football Reference for the same season for Lionel Messi? More assists, less assists, same amount.
I'm going to say more.
It says 20 goals and 11 assists. So Football Reference has more assists for Lionel Messi than the MLS website. But
it does.
Hold on. Because if you look up Lionel Messi's stats on ESPN.com, again, no idea where they're getting any of which each one of these websites is pulling from. ESPN has him down as 20 goals and 16 assists. So ESPN has him with 16 assists. Football Reference has him with 11. And MLSsoccer.com has him with 10. What the hell? What are we? I don't know.
I don't know what we're supposed to do here. And I actually texted Landon Donovan about this yesterday because Landon Donovan,
just casual,
as I'm sure people know, is the all-time assist leader in Major League Soccer.
That makes sense.
And I said to Landon, I said, hey, where do you shake out on second assists? He's like, well, MLS doesn't do that anymore. I said, oh, yes, they do, Landon. I said, as a matter of fact, if you and Tim Howard want to address this, I would appreciate that you guys can address this on your podcast, because I would love to hear you guys talk about why Major League Soccer does this when no other league does
They're
this.
also welcome to come on here if they want.
And I didn't want to get into, well, how many of your assists, Landon, were hockey assists? What am I to make of your record of 136 MLS assists? Is that even the number? Because I'm only on Wikipedia. I don't even know if that's the real MLS number. So, what am I to make of all of this data? And then I have another friend who's an agent, and I asked him, do you get bonuses for assists? How does this work when you have a bonus? And then I asked somebody with SDFC, they're like, we don't do bonuses on assists. We're not even sure that we believe in that. So again, this isn't rising to the level of massive controversy, other than to say it is definitely making my week of preparation just a little bit harder. But I just like stats sometimes. This is kind of a little bit of stats in a nutshell, right? We talked about WAR and baseball, that there's two different versions of it. And I guess you use whichever one it is to support your case. If you're trying to make the case for or against, you probably will gravitate towards the wins above replacement that may or may not make your case or support your case. And now, like with statistics, if I'm a player, if I'm Chucky Lozano, I'm like, fuck right, I got 3 assists. What are you talking about? But if I'm the team and I might have to negotiate a contract with this guy somewhere down the road, I'm like, no, dude, you got 2 assists. You're not giving you a statistic I'm not giving you an assist for that, for Anders Dreyer. You know what I mean? And then it leads to all sorts of other weird stuff. What if Lozano had passed the ball to Dreyer, and let's say Dreyer passed it back to Chucky and Chucky scores? Does he get a goal and an assist on the same play? I don't know.
I can't imagine you can assist yourself. That's a question for someone who.
But if the pass had gone through, he got an assist because Godoy scored the goal.
No, I get your point, but my follow up is
but why wouldn't that count?
This is a question for someone who follows a lot more hockey than we do. Someone who follows hockey is going to be able to tell me whether or not you can get a hockey assist on your own goal. I feel like that should be against the rules, but it's interesting to point this out because we are experiencing something with SDFC and MLS that we've never really experienced before, which is a major league professional sporting league that is still kind of in its infancy, right? Like we
Mhm.
started watching baseball, in the 90s. It had existed for almost 100 years. The NHL started in the 10s, the 1910s. The NBA started in the 40s. MLS started in 96. It's going to be celebrating its 30th anniversary next year, I think.
This year. This year is
This
year number 30.
Okay, good. So they've only been around for 30 years. Every other major league, professional league that we pay attention to has been around probably 3 times as long as them and has sorted this stuff out. And so, like you said, this is not a big controversy. This is not a big like, oh my god, it's going to break the MLS. But this is one of those things where you got to look at the MLS and be like, get your shit together. Like
Right.
you
That's why I said to Landon, I said, I feel like you and Tim have a platform where you should talk about this.
yeah.
But I don't want you to lose any of these assets.
No, yeah, no, I don't either. But
But
they need unified numbers. You can't have the numbers changing from website to website. That's insane.
And I don't want to take anything away from Chucky, but let's be honest here. Unless it's like a rare occasion where it's like boom, boom, one touch into the goal, then maybe you can go, hey, that would be a time.
And that's what it's
that's
meant
an
for.
example of a play where that could be a second assist. But my understanding also is like this stuff isn't even being done by AI. Like it's being done like baseball. Baseball has a dude who's up there like sitting in a box scoring the game, and it's up to him to decide if something's a hit or an error. It's an official score. That like the second assist stuff is it's a judgment call. Like it's somebody's judgment as to whether or not to give it out or not.
Assists are judgment calls in and of themselves, right?
But I mean, if it's a scoring action, now there is another stat. They're called like scoring action. Was there a first scoring action, second scoring action? And maybe there's room in the conversation. But there are guys who get bonused out on goal contributions. Goal contribution is goal and assist combined.
Yeah.
And a good number, right? Like Luca De La Torre said earlier this year, is his he set a personal goal for himself to have 10 goal contributions.
So goals.
A
plus
guy like
assists.
Chucky Lozano is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20, 25, something like that on a healthy season. But well, what is it? Like when we don't even really know what it is. I'm of the opinion, nothing against Major League Soccer, but I'm of the opinion that we should probably just move on from the double assist, from the hockey assist.
Probably. The funny thing is the NBA has...
Since nobody else does, if nobody else does it, like we don't really need to be that unique about it.
Right. In terms of no one else like soccer leagues, right? And like the NBA...
Right. Like if we want to look at our like win, loss, and draw, like our table, our league table, our standings, if we want to do that a little bit differently than other leagues, it's annoying, but fine. But this is something where, like, if nobody else is doing it, maybe there's a reason.
Yeah, it's not a different sport. Like you want people to be able to watch this and watch an EPL game and it to make sense in both places. So it has to be similar enough. In the NBA, they've toyed with this because there's the pick and roll action, which used to just be like either the person with the ball is going to drive to the lane, or they're going to pass it over to the guy who set the screen for like a little layup or dunk or whatever. Now it's turned into, they have options, right? They can either hit the screener who's driving to the hoop on the short roll, or there's always someone in the corner and they can hit that guy in the corner. And the thing is, when they hit that guy in the corner, he usually has a choice. Do I want this good shot in the corner, or do I want to kick it over to the guy on the elbow who's got a great shot? And they're encouraged to hit the guy, to pass up the good shot for the great shot, always. And because they're encouraged to do that by coaching, there's lots of conversations about whether or not that quote unquote hockey assist should be brought into the NBA, and those guys should be rewarded for passing up their good shot and giving their team a great shot. Rewarded more than the team gets, more points and hopefully wins the game. So it's a conversation, it's out there, but yeah, it just confuses things, right?
Because it does. And again, I'm not against people like, is it harming anybody to have Chucky Lozano pick up? Godoy's got an assist. I don't know. I don't even know where that assist was, but I'm sure it was a second assist somewhere, because it was a huge revelation to me when I went on MLS's website. I was like, wait a minute here. What is this? So, it's not a site that I think is easy to necessarily navigate, or at least that I'm not comfortable with. I can learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that people pick up other stuff, but it's just like, I don't know, like they're not doing this in England. They're not doing this in Spain. They're not doing this in Germany.
Yeah.
They're not really doing this anywhere. And maybe there's a reason for that.
They were
All
they, they
right.
were probably trying to juice the numbers a little bit, but they don't. To Landon's point, they don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, he was surprised. He's like, "Well, they haven't done that in years." I'm like, "No, like they are."
Yeah,
He's
in
like,
some
"Oh,
places.
he's like, I did not realize that." We've got an hour here without really talking about the Padres, and that's because they're coming off an off day, and I mean,
The
you
Rockies are
know,
terrible.
Rockies are bad, and there's nothing really to say unless you know what's going on with Tatis and Cronenworth.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing really to say. Nick Pivetta is going to be pitching Friday night, and Pivetta Hart King, and then the Cubs on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think the Cubs in town always tons of fun there, so I'm pretty excited about that. But 6-game homestand, you know, nothing against anybody on local radio, but man, these off days murder if you have nothing else to talk about on local radio.
Yeah, and
I know people can. It's like an unquenchable thirst for some people when it comes to Padre talk, but man, like when there's nothing happening, there's just nothing happening.
yeah.
You can only revel in a 10-3 start, but for like 20 minutes, in my opinion, and then you got to find something else to make it interesting.
One,
But
how many times have you seen a team get off to a fast start and then their season falls apart and it doesn't mean anything, right? You don't want to be
yeah,
sitting here pounding the drum going like, they're better than the Dodgers, they're winning the World Series, and then they lose their next 7 games and you're like, ugh, all right, never
yeah. I mean,
mind.
it's kind of like the well, the only other time they got off to these starts, yeah, that's what they did in 1984 and 1998. And you kind of reverse engineer that. And you're like, well, maybe, like, did the good start? Is that why they went to the World Series? Or did they
Or were
go to
they
the
really
World
good?
Series because they were just good teams, right?
I
Like,
I do think that the start puts a little bit more pressure on them to keep it up, right? Which I think puts pressure on them to eliminate holes. I'm starting to think that Jason Hayward is running out of time. And I don't mean running out of time like he's going to get cut. I think if Jason Hayward hasn't improved his hitting like 2 weeks from now, I think he's going to start losing starts and being more of a fourth, fifth outfielder, bench guy, whatever. Like I don't think they should get rid of him. I think he's really well liked. He had that play the other day where he, out hustled the pitcher and dove to first base and got the safe, and that was obviously the whole team was up and they were crazy for it. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's a really useful guy. But if he's going to be hitting, I don't know what he's hitting now, but I don't even think he's hitting 200. If he's not going to be able to hit 200, I think in a couple weeks they're going to be like, "Hey, we'll try Oscar Gonzalez, we'll try Tirso Ornelas. Maybe they'll look and Preller will look and see if there's someone available." But I think them being this good and towards top of the standings just gives them a little less wiggle room, a little less time to figure things out. Um, for guys like Hayward, the catching situation is what it is. They like the defensive side of that. They don't care as much about the offense, I think. But I think Jason Hayward's got to pick it up here, maybe against the Rockies, to avoid some of those questions getting bigger.
yeah, I mean, it's 28 at bats.
Yeah,
I just think, I think every player in baseball will probably bat 180 over a 28 at bat
that's why I said
stretch.
like he needs 2 more weeks.
Yeah, I think usually you look at this sort of stuff and in months,
Yeah,
so you look at it at the end of April. But I mean, if you're Jason
very
Hayward,
long.
you're 35. The team has moved on from aging veterans before. So,
And again, he'd be
uh,
a great fourth, fifth outfielder because he's got the glove, he's got the arm, he's well liked, he's kind of a leader. Like he's a
yeah,
great bench guy, great bench
it
guy.
feels like you might have to they do different things, but between Gurriel and Hayward, it feels like you can't you can't have them both
I
if it
think
doesn't get better.
I think Oscar Gonzalez can take Gurriel's spot. I do.
Yeah, you can't have them both.
Nope.
You can start with them, but then you're running into a situation like you had a couple of years ago with Matt Carpenter and
Skip
ugh,
Schumacher? No. Oh, I
Uh,
know who you're talking about. This is
no,
gonna
Skip
bother me.
Schumacher was a coach. Uh,
Just
Nelson Cruz.
there it is.
Where you got like you're like, hey, if you want to justify one of these guys because he's good in the clubhouse and all that sort, and he can come up with a hit every once in a while. He can run into one, and he's been in big situations.
Yeah, you can have one of those
Uh,
guys.
you can't have. I don't know that you can have two of them.
No,
You
two.
only have
It's
26 guys
right.
on your
That it's
roster,
like 10% of the roster
and you're
almost.
already committed to a catching situation, which you're prioritizing what it is they do behind the plate,
Mhm,
not what it is that they do at the plate.
mhm.
So I also will say quickly, just to wrap it up, I do appreciate everybody who went scrolling through the box scores last night in El Paso to try to find out who was or wasn't playing and trying to consider that as some sort of evidence. I always appreciate the internet sleuths out there trying to figure out if Connor Joe, who was not in the starting lineup for El Paso last night, means that he might be on his way to San Diego. I don't know that he is or isn't. I did cast a line into the water to see if I can get a nibble on that. Couldn't get a nibble. So I don't know what to tell you. It may be that Connor Joe's on his way, or it might not be that Connor Joe's on his way. I didn't stick around long enough to check the box score for El Paso to see if he made an appearance in pitch hitting or if there's been any update on that. But much like I always used to appreciate when fans would track private planes for major football colleges when they would be flying coaches around the country, I always appreciated that people would go to the Air Tracker website and track private planes to find out, wait a second here. I think we have a developing story. It sounds like like Brian Kelly's on his way. He's on his way. He's on a plane right now. He's going to LSU. I do like that about sports fandom.
Me too.
I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah.
But and I'm a fan of. Well, these guys aren't in the starting lineup. What's going on here? Is this a story? Is he on his way to San Diego? I just I don't know.
I think
I can wait.
Yeah, I think that's what social media is best for. It's not great for like podcast content, but it's absolutely fantastic for social media content.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. Maybe these guys pinch hit it late into the game. I just saw. I think it was Jim Russell pointing out that Connor Joe and one other player, an infielder, was not playing for El Paso, or at least not starting for El Paso. So I guess we'll see.
Should I check the box score?
I don't think we're going to solve the case, and frankly,
I do think it would be funny.
I can wait.
I do think it would be funny if Connor Joe, made his Padres debut against the Rockies in San Diego. It'd be really fun.
Man. Maybe he even still knows the signs.
Maybe
maybe they just didn't even change their signs in Colorado, and he could tell you, when the double hit, the double steal.
All right, here's the lineup from El Paso: Wade, Dungan, Brooks, Campusano, Ornelas, who Eggy Rosario came in and replaced. Perlaza, Sullivan.
Okay, that was the other one.
Mondu,
Rosario wasn't in the starting lineup.
Yeah, so no Connor Joe. He's definitely on a plane, or maybe he woke up in San Diego this morning, hometown kid. But Eggy Rosario, Tirso Ornelas, Jonathan Perlaza, Tyler Wade, they all played last night. Here's your update.
Man, I mean, are we going through this again with Tatis? Man, I don't know. All righty. Stay tuned. I do want to, again, I apologize for tossing it out there that we would be at Mason Aleworks today. That's my bad. But I'm off to get my taxes done. I got to take a quick shower here and get running. Thank you again, everybody who has said that they would be willing to subscribe to this podcast as we are figuring some things out. Do appreciate it. I feel like people are listening. I mean, people are talking, John. People have all sorts of ways that they think we can monetize this. So, I keep getting texts from people who are like, "Hey, let's chat. Let's have a get together."
I love to hear that there are more opportunities for us to make money off this, because honestly, I'm loving doing this. And if there's ways for us to do that without selling our souls, or selling our community up a river, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, I'll get to it. I'll save it for off the air. But we'll. I did not expect to go an hour 10 here today. I thought this would be sort of in, sort of out. But me, once I start talking about MLS assists, I just can't stop.
I think we went 30 minutes on your subscriptions and your taxes.
Once I get going on MLS assist records, me. I mean, this is why we have to go commercial free. I mean, imagine having to have that conversation interrupted by a stupid commercial break. I mean, seriously.
Or
where's the logic in that?
Or Brian
the
Dutcher interview.
Yeah, right. I like Dutch. I'm not going to knock Dutch.
Not this time.
Yeah. Probably right about that. Let's give Dutch a couple weeks off.
Yeah.
They need to fundraise.
Exactly.
So they can keep players. So, all righty. Thank you to everybody. Appreciate it. Again, 6:00 pregame kickoff show. Colorado Rapids SDFC. Wave plays this weekend.
Hey.
I know we neglected Wave, but SD Wave is back in action. Unfortunately, we're head-to-head with Wave on Saturday, but I'll still shout them out. And of course, could be a fun weekend and a really fun, I think, a fun homestand at Petco Park. So fingers crossed. Good news on Tatis a little later. But we'll be back at it on Monday is our plan. Thank you to everybody for supporting Section 1904, and we'll do it again soon.